Hey everyone, what's up? It is the Real Talk with Claudia Mostaghasi. I am not Claudia Mostaghasi. I am Ventura Lopez. I'm filling in for her. I'm her marketing director. And I have a very special guest with us here today, Miss Kate Hilliard. Kate, tell us about yourself.
So I'm a registered and licensed dietitian and also certified diabetes educator. So I've been doing that for 10 years now.
Wow.
And I absolutely love it. I became a dietitian because in high school, I learned that eating healthy made me feel better, perform better with sports. And so I really just wanted I want to teach everyone that, eating the right foods, taking care of your body really makes a big impact.
And it does. So one of the reasons why we brought you here today is because Claudia is participating in the Women of Impact for the American Heart Association. And so we're like, okay, heart health, what do we need? We got a CPR instructor. We have a trainer coming in next week, but we were like, a nutritionist, hello. You can only do so much, but if you're not eating right, then that's on you. So tell us, what is some of the main components that someone should start whenever they're trying to get a healthy diet? Like, what do you have, maybe like a step-by-step, or like, how does that go for you?
Sure. So one of the big focus I always have is on your plant-based foods. It's always going to come down to your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, lean proteins. And one of the kind of eating patterns I recommend is Mediterranean diet. I like to call it lifestyle. I don't like the word diet, but really it's a pattern that makes half your plate focus on vegetables, fruits, having proteins in the sense of chicken or fish, eggs, and then your whole grains like your brown rice and sweet potatoes.
So like with plant-based, there was a time during like peak pandemic 2020, I went hardcore vegan. Like it was like no cooked food, no nothing. And then it was just like all fully raw vegetables and fruits, it was fun for like 2 weeks. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try plant-based. So then I got really into it. I loved it. I got an obsession with like tofu and like putting it in everything, tofu eggs, like, and then I would like air fry it sometimes. And then what else was there? I just like kind of smash it and then make it into like a burger almost.
Yeah, that's
and it was so good. And I fell in love with tofu, honestly, during that time. I still eat it every so often, but it's like once a pandemic started to kind of subside, it was like, oh, well, now I can go wherever I want now. Sure. But something that I do want to mention on the plant-based, you do feel a difference. You really do.
Definitely. And you're cooking more at home and you're relying more off of that food versus going through a drive-through or visiting restaurants. And so I love, even if you don't do vegan, vegetarian, even if it isn't a lifestyle, there's so many great components to it that you can incorporate. And so now you'll forever know how to make tofu scrambles and black bean burgers and that you can incorporate to just your overall diet.
So
now.
Are you plant-based?
I do as much as I can. I kind of, of course, I love fish. I love that. I live in Corpus Christi because, plenty of it.
The best.
And so, I kind of give myself an 80-20, right? 80% of the time I'm eating healthy and I'm doing what I recommend to patients. But also 20%, to have flexibility because, like I said, today's my birthday, right? Yeah. I plan on eating cake and ice cream and,
and just enjoying it.
I always like to say as a dietitian, I'm very realistic, in the sense of, I get the real life part of it, but it's how we eat most of the time that affects our health. And so if we're making that focusing on those plant-based foods, you're just going to feel so much better.
So you said in high school you had started your passion for it. So you said you wanted to start helping people. However, like, was there anyone in your family or your close area where you're like, you know what, I need to be the one that makes a change? Or like, how did that go for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, our whole family, we're kind of going under transition and just seeing that, part of my family, they do struggle with weight and with health. And it was more so my older brothers that kind of took charge and started buying the skim milk and the whole wheat bread. And it's like, all right, so I'll just eat this too. Yeah, I'll try it too. But again, what I love about eating healthy is it gives you an immediate feedback. You don't have to wait 3-6 months to feel good after eating that salad. Yeah. You're going to feel great after eating it, and it's not going to make you tired or sluggish, like burger and fries would be. So that's something I always tell my patients is to keep in focus, how you're going to feel after you consume this meal. And so that'll help kind of gauge your choice on, you know, when you're, maybe you do have to stop at a fast food place, but it makes the salad a little more enticing when you're thinking about, well, how am I going to feel after eating this versus, you know, something a little heavy and fried.
And, you know, that's true. Like lately, my go-to, if I go to Chick-fil-A, I love that chicken wrap, but I also love that Cobb salad. It's like the best thing in the world. And I have noticed, like, yes, it's still technically a fast food salad. However, like in comparison to that, you know, the chicken or whatever I get, after, you really do feel that difference. And then like with Wings More, I love Wings More. Like that is one of my favorite places. Like ask any of my friends, that's where we're gonna go. And it's always like that 15-20 minutes after, we're like, that was the worst thing I've ever had. And it feels so good up until like you're like, oh my god, we're gonna go to Wings More, and then oh my god, the pickle chips are here, and then you just start eating. By the time you know it, you're in the car like, I'm so full I can't breathe, taking a nap. So say, what are some good alternatives in any restaurant, whether it's fast food or not, that I can make? So if I still want to enjoy, maybe I still want to get the steak or I still want to get the burger, what can I do in order to kind of make some adjustments there?
Yeah, so something that I've done is just get the kids meal, because you know, if I do want a burger and fries, I just want a smaller portion of it, you know, instead of doing a double patty or, you know, anything like that. Sometimes I also think through, like when I go to some place like Chick-fil-A, it's really, I like the taste of the sauce. And so I don't so much need the fries per se.
That's
but
actually so
the
true.
The chicken nuggets, just dipping those little, you know, nuggets in the sauce is satisfying enough. So those are some of the tips that I've used.
And I totally get that sauce thing, because sometimes like it's like my friends always make fun of me because if we go somewhere, I'm like, can I get 3? Like, I'm very specific with the sauces, because it's like I like the sauce more than the actual food.
That's when you think Chick-fil-A, you think of
and you can't just grab a spoon and just be like, I'm just a sauce today. That's it. So tell us about the Mediterranean diet.
Sure. So it really, again, it focuses on plant-based. It's about eating really 3 meals a day with 1 or 2 snacks in between. I feel is best for just energy and consistency. A lot of times when I have patients and if they're struggling with weight, or, you know, one of the things is they really don't eat breakfast. And what happens is it pushes off your calories later in the day. And so they tend to be eating a lot more later on,
to make up for it.
Exactly. Or at 3 p.m. when, you know, we get that sluggish, you know, time frame grabbing for something sweet. Or
and honestly, that's my biggest struggle. Like, I can't do breakfast in the morning. I don't know what it is. But still around 10 o'clock, whenever I'm here, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna wait till lunch. And then sometimes you get so busy and it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna wait for dinner. And then by the time dinner's here, you're having your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then your snacks that you missed out on the day.
It's true.
So it does. But the thing is, how do I combat that? Because I genuinely like cannot do breakfast in the morning. Maybe if I'm off and I'm just enjoying a Saturday or whatever, but like that 9 to 5, no.
And our stomach, our body gets used to what we do. And so if you're not used to eating breakfast, you know, it's going to be kind of weird to have food there. Sometimes I just say a small breakfast, even just a protein shake, right? A liquid. Sometimes that's a little lighter on the stomach. So I've used that. Or even, you know, 10 o'clock when we do feel those hunger pains, that's where it's great to use something like nuts or trail mix, something that will still be a healthy snack but can still tide you over to a lunchtime and help you make, you know, a better choice at lunch. What I've learned about myself is I don't want to get to a point where I'm so hungry, because that's when I make bad decisions, right? Because I just want food now. And so I always carry snacks in my purse, or, you know, just something to where if I do feel that little hunger pain, you know, I have something that's healthy that can hold me off till that next meal.
So with the Mediterranean diet, I've looked into it a few times. I kind of know like the basis of it. You said it's a lot of plant-based. And you know,
like your non-starchy vegetables, so like lettuce, tomato, cucumber, bell peppers, you know, asparagus, really everything, you know, besides peas, corn, and potatoes, which those are still great.
Wait, peas are starchy?
Peas are starchy.
What? I would have never known that.
But they're still good, you know, they're still a good thing. And so and then of course using olive oil as well, and so healthy fats. So that would be like your olive oil, avocado oils, whole avocados, things like you know, walnuts, almonds, pistachios, olives. And so there's a lot of heart healthy fats too that go along with it, because we also know that can help reduce blood pressure and can actually add helping with heart health
Yeah.
when we have those unsaturated fats.
So yes, speaking of heart health, like I said, first off, February is National Heart Month. So definitely wear your red whenever you can. It's Friday, so we're wearing our red.
Very nice.
And so with heart health, obviously you can diet as much as you can, but what are some things that we can do to prevent that in regards to diet, maybe exercising? Like, what are your top recommendations? Like if you had to give 5 to someone.
Yeah, so I always recommend that you get yearly labs, to go to the doctor, get your labs, because when we're looking at heart health, we're looking at blood pressure. We're looking at cholesterol, we're looking at triglycerides, we're looking at blood sugar. And so you need to know what your numbers are. And that's something I always stress is, if I have a patient that has diabetes, what's your A1C, what's your fasting blood glucose? Because it's really, heart health is all about vessel health. So we need to keep our vessels healthy. And so knowing your numbers is super important, because then that, first of all, that's super motivating. When you do see on the lab work, that's like, oh, this is high, I need to do something. So to me, that's motivating. It's knowing specifically, okay, what do I need to target here? So if it's blood sugar, watching carbohydrates, watching refined sugars, sugary drinks, to me, that's the low-hanging fruit. If there's high blood sugar, that's the first thing that really needs to be reduced or really needs to go, is sweet teas, sodas, because it does nothing for, nothing for your health. If it's triglycerides, that's where focusing on saturated fat. Are you getting too much fried food, too much butter? And so blood pressure, am I getting too much sodium because I'm eating out? So I would say, when you focus on your labs, you know exactly what you want to target. The other thing about that, of course, is going to be diet. I'm a dietitian, so of course, right? And to me, it's cooking more at home, using more vegetables, using fruit for snacks, snacking on things like nuts, and again, those lean proteins that aren't fried or smothered in butter. Another thing too is exercise, like you mentioned. So textbook recommendation is 30 minutes, 5 times a week of cardio exercise. And, the heart is a muscle, and we sometimes forget that. We think of our arms and our legs, but our heart is a muscle, so it wants to be worked. And cardio is one of the best things to do that. So simply walking, right? Walking is one of the best things to do.
See, and I think that's where a lot of people get discouraged, because they hear, oh, I have to do cardio. They're thinking like, oh my God, I have to train for a marathon now. But you really are just walking.
Right.
That's all you gotta do.
That's all you gotta do. And so I'll say that my dog really helps me, get my steps in, walking her around the block. But also if weight loss is one of your goals as well, I would say too, resistance training is very important. And so we call it like weight bearing exercise, and doesn't have to necessarily be dumbbells or physical weight. It could be resistant bands. It could be your own body weight when we think of exercises like squats or sit-ups or push-ups. And so when you engage that muscle, it actually takes more calories to burn and maintain. So in the long run, it's going to help with weight loss, with, of course, keeping all your labs, in better control. So you really want a marriage of both of them, cardio and resistance training.
See, here, I'll tell you what, for those of you watching, if you haven't been in our office, we have like a 2-mile hallway to get to the bathroom. So we always make jokes that is our cardio.
Hey, that works.
And we have that staircase that
and you
saw.
Have stairs, I was just gonna say.
So I try to take the stairs as much as I can. Sometimes whenever I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take the stairs, all the ladies are like, why, there's an elevator right here. I'm like, please. Like in my head, I'm like, I have to.
That's right, take those stairs.
But yeah, we always make the jokes like, that's our cardio for the day, like running back and forth to the bathroom. So question for you.
Yes.
So you said diabetes and heart health really merge together.
Yes.
Corpus is very high in diabetic patients.
Yes.
So with your services, like, how does that go? Like, like what is something that really you have to get through their head of like, that's the only way that this can happen, change, you know what I mean?
So I never want to put fear out there that it's not diabetes that causes those vessel complications that we picture with uncontrolled diabetes, right? Like the amputations or dialysis. In my eyes, that could be very preventable. It's not just diabetes that causes it, it's uncontrolled blood sugar. It's hyperglycemia. So you can have diabetes, be in great control, and never have to have any of those complications. Wow. And so that's always the goal of something like an A1C is we want to keep, if you're diagnosed with diabetes, we want that A1C to be under 7 so that
Under
you're
7.
keeping your heart healthy, your eyes, your kidneys.
So you heard that, under 7, your A1C.
Yeah,
Pay
under
attention.
7 for an A1C. If you have diabetes, if you don't and wanting to prevent it, under 5.7.
Under 5.7.
Yeah, so it keeps you under that pre-diabetes range. But even that pre-diabetes range of an A1C 5.7 to 6.4, it's helpful to make action. When you see those numbers, it puts you to action. And so that's the first thing. I never want to induce fear. That let's get your blood sugar in control. And so doing that, again, looking at, what are you drinking on a daily basis? Are you getting plenty of water? What carbohydrates are you getting in? Are they the carbohydrates coming from fruit and from dairy and from whole grains, or are they, ones that are coming more from breads and from fried potatoes and bag of chips, right? And so even just, replacing certain snacks, replacing certain drinks. So, to me, when I have a patient in front of me and I want things to be doable, I don't want it to be this whole 180, let's change everything that you're doing to make it look like me. Your lifestyle is different than my lifestyle, right? Your job schedule and, if your kid demands and all that. So I always want to work with a patient where they're at. And so wherever we can, switch up things or reduce and make them feel confident, that you can do it. Because that's just with anything, when we set goals, that if we accomplish a little bit of it, then it's like, oh, I think I could do a little bit more. And so that's exactly what, I try to work with my patients on.
So do you have a typical age range that you work with, or is it anybody who shows that?
Every age. I've had every age. And just with diabetes, with blood pressure, I've even had working with, stress eating is such a big one,
Yes,
so emotional eating. I've worked with athletes even to, if they need to gain weight or if they need to build muscle mass. So I definitely have a large variety of, those I see, because food is connected with just, anything that we're going through. And so.
And food is everything. I think a lot of people forget, I forget it myself, food is your battery power. It really is. And so, like we mentioned earlier, whenever you're eating not so good stuff, you're draining your battery essentially.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Yeah, I always say food is fuel. Same thing is, not just, you're looking at food. Of course it's enjoyable, but also thinking of it in a sense of what's going to give me the most energy, and so eating, going back to Mediterranean, going back to plant-based, incorporate even just one more vegetable a day, right? Cook one more meal a week at home and just feel the difference and reap the benefit of that. So what is a good typical grocery list that I should be getting, like if I'm maintaining my heart health, my diabetes, like what should I be buying? Great question. You should spend most of your time in the produce section. So and I'll tell you the way I shop. Obviously, food prices are what they are. So a lot of times I do base it off of, seasonal is usually going to be cheaper. So sometimes I go to the grocery store with literally just, I have fruit and veg on the list, and then when I get there I see, okay, what's on sale, what's a good price for this, and knowing that, I'm going to work with it no matter what it is. And so just recently kale, was the big thing. So I have a big old bag of kale and making kale chips, kale salads, throwing it in, any kind of pasta dish I could, and soups. And so and that's what I recommend too, is if there's like a vegetable or something that's like, well, I don't typically know what to do with this, that's a great way to take it home, to try it, to look up recipes and figure out, okay, how can I make this work for me and taste good, and knowing too that frozen is just as good as fresh as well. So I always like to keep some backup frozen. Even canned is going to give you some benefit there. And see, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I myself have struggled with, oh no, I have to get the fresh one, like it has to be the fresh one, because then if I get yes, exactly, then it goes bad. Or then if I get the frozen one, I'm like, oh well, it's probably so old at this point. I know, freeze burned and all that. But then I forget that frozen is picked at peak freshness. That's right. And then they freeze it right then and there. That's right. But that's something I forget, because I'm like, oh, and well, this one's unfrozen, this one's fresh right here, and that one's probably been in the freezer for like a week at this point at HEB. So it's kind of just like, thank you for saying that. Yeah. To get, and one thing I had to work with too is it's okay to pay for convenience if you know you're going to eat it. If I buy a head of lettuce, half the time it goes bad before I finish it. So I'll pay a little bit more so I can already get the pre-cut, pre-washed, and for some reason I will finish that bag off no problem. No food waste. and so on, even on certain fruit veggie trays, sometimes if you know you're gonna eat it, it's okay to pay a little bit more for it.
You know what? Speaking of the fruit trays, I had a friend in college. The way that they got their produce sometimes, just to be able to afford some more, they get a veggie tray and then a fruit tray from H-E-B, and they would just kind of eat off of that throughout the week. And I was like, that's smart, because technically it's already cut up for you. You're not
there's
having
no excuse.
Yeah, there's no excuse. And then also food waste. Like they could buy that whole watermelon and then only eat like a quarter of it, and the rest goes bad. It's already there and it's already prepared. So honestly, I think that's something, maybe if you're trying to eat a little healthier and maybe you don't want to go all out and commit to buying so much fresh stuff, start small, right?
That's a great recommendation. I love that. And with kind of that fresh produce, sometimes if I do see it's getting a little wilty, that's when I'll make a soup, and whatever vegetables are left, I'm throwing that in a soup or throwing that in a casserole or mixing it with my eggs, so something that I don't use it up, or I will use it up. My background as a dietitian, I spent majority of my time working at the food bank. And so I was doing community nutrition. And to me, it was like, I don't want to waste food, here I am in this setting. So that's definitely things that have stuck with me. And then after that, with your proteins, going for the fish, going for the chicken, to stock up on things like that. Frozen, again, using your frozen meat so it doesn't go bad on you. Things like making sure you're prepped with your snacks. I would say a good chip alternative would be popcorn. Still kind of crunchy, and it's super convenient, individualized bags now.
My favorite is the Smart Balance or Smart something.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's
like a Smart Pop or
there you go, Smart
Skinny
Pop
or one of those.
So good. I love it.
So those are awesome. And if I always tell someone, know yourself. If you know that you'll be tempted walking down the cookie aisle or the ice cream aisle,
don't even bother.
Just don't even bother. Right? Out of sight, out of mind goes a long way. So when you're shopping, and even to prevent from even bringing it in your house, right? Because if it's not there, you're not going to eat it. Give yourself some nutrition.
You know what? Juicing. How do you feel about juicing?
You're gonna get all your nutrients. The only thing that you really miss out on, though, is the fiber.
Really?
And yes, so that's obviously juicing. You're removing all the pulp, you're removing all the rind, and so even like oranges. If you're able to, the more fiber we consume too, that's gonna help with our cholesterol. That soluble fiber, and fiber also fills us up. And so having whole fruit versus juice, we tend to get a lot fuller from that, because it takes a lot longer to break down, digest, absorb.
So would you say you would most likely not recommend a juice cleanse? Because a lot of people, you'll see it on like Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah, it's
they're like, I just bought a 2-week juice cleanse, only juice. It's like every time I see that, I'm like, you are starving.
It's true. Yeah, any kind of juice cleanse or any of those, obviously it's really reduction in calories. And just as we have clothing trends, there's food trends, and we love to click on those things, and we love to, like lose 5 pounds in 3 days. Well, yeah, if you're not eating anything, of course you're going to lose weight, right? But food is fuel, and so going back to that concept. But again, I think there's things we can glean off of different diets and those things. And so I had fresh squeezed orange juice this morning with my eggs, and because I just felt that was fitting. But I'm also going to have whole fruit incorporated. I'm not just going to rely on that. So that's some of the things I've done.
So are there any signs that you as a dietitian can say, hey, that might lead you to heart disease? I know we said it's about taking care of the vessels. Essentially, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. But are there some tell signs that you've seen and the people you've worked with that have it?
That's a great question. So there's something called a metabolic syndrome, and what it is, it's a lot of different indicators that could definitely point to heart disease. And so one of them being overweight, being obese, of course, high blood pressure, things like even sleep apnea.
What is sleep apnea?
Sure. So that's when sleeping at night, your heart actually stops. And so you kind of wake up and gasping for air. And you have these moments during the night, and it prevents you from having a good quality sleep. Wow. And that definitely could be just, too much pressure on the chest from being overweight. There's other reasons too. But and so that's, telltale sign that
I never heard of that. That's scary.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously there's CPAPs and those things to help with it. But again, a high blood sugar, like I said, a high blood pressure reading, even things like being insulin resistant. And we can see that in two things. One is a darkening of the skin, usually behind the neck or sometimes in the folds of our skins. That we'll see a darkening that's underneath the skin. That's a sign of insulin resistance. Wow. As well as skin tags. So skin tags that usually are typically around the neck area. That's another indicator of insulin resistance. And so so when I see a patient, most of the time there's not just one thing we're addressing. It's usually multiple things,
because they all end up connecting.
Yeah, I mean, just medication wise too. There's not just taking a diabetes medication, but a blood sugar, or not just for their blood sugar, but for a statin for their cholesterol or for their high blood pressure. They're coming in with multiple medications because there's multiple things to address. And so again, that Mediterranean lifestyle, that plant-based food, that's going to help address every single area, of it. And we can help with, weight loss being one of the biggest drivers of that, to really help see a reduction in those numbers.
So could you explain to me, I always get confused on type 1 and type 2.
Oh, okay.
All the time.
Good question.
Yes.
Sure. So type 1 diabetes is more tied to genetics. And what happens there is your pancreas stops producing insulin. Your immune system actually starts attacking the cells that make the insulin. And so people that have type 1 diabetes, they need to live on daily injections of insulin because their pancreas isn't putting it out. And so and type 1, I mean, they can be diagnosed as babies, as infants, all the way up to, I've seen older, in their 50s and their 60s, that their pancreas just isn't producing insulin anymore. And so
so it can still happen like as you get older.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. It can still happen. Sometimes it's an infection or, something a stressor that can trigger the body, for it. And so versus type 2 diabetes, we always say that's a little bit more connected with lifestyle. And so that's where it's more defined by insulin resistance versus just your pancreas not producing enough insulin. And so that's where, lifestyle modifications are the biggest driver for helping with preventing type 2 or treating type 2 versus, with type 1, it's not so much, lifestyle, of course. They need insulin. They're usually don't have to lose weight, and so type 2 is the one that's more the modifiable lifestyle and risk factors.
So type 2, hypothetically, you say you do have it or you are diagnosed with it, you work out, you start eating healthier, you have a chance of removing it or like?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I always love to say, definitely reverse it. In the medical field, they always say to manage it, right? You're managing it because, say you lose all that weight, you gain it back. Well, high blood sugars are going to come along with it, potentially. So, but keeping good weight, keeping that healthy lifestyle, really is going to make the biggest difference for keeping blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol all in check to, again, keep your heart nice, strong, and healthy.
Wow. Well, thank you, Kate. Kate, where can we find you?
Sure. So Kate Hilliard, nutrition.com is my website.
Okay.
And so I am a dietitian for private practice, and so if you're, wanting to work with me and wanting to set some goals and be healthier, I'd love to work with you. So that's definitely a place to look and get more resources.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned a lot as well. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.